When we look at lymphoid organs, they are strategically located at places that are dangerous, where pathogens can easily enter. We have primary lymphoid organs, which develop and mature immune cells. They include the bone marrow and the thymus. We briefly touched on that a little while back. Then we have secondary lymphoid organs, to which mature immune cells migrate to and do their work. So those are areas where they can survey stuff going through, and then, if necessary, they can destroy it. So those include lymph nodes. A lot of stuff goes through lymph nodes. All the lymph passing back into the blood goes through lymph nodes. Also, they include, tonsils. They include the spleen. Spleen is where we clean the blood. Spleen is where we recycle the blood. A lot of blood goes through the spleen. So that's good. That's a good place to monitor things. We also have mucous membrane tissue like the tonsils, appendix, Peyer's patches in the small intestine. We'll talk about Peyer's patches later, as well as the appendix, even though the appendix is quite common knowledge in many of us, since it can be infected and we have to take it out. The thymus lies behind the sternum. It is well developed in newborns and then gradually is replaced by fatty tissues starting after puberty. Although we have had a cadaver that seems to have thymus tissue in its chest still, even though that person was old. So it's right behind the sternum. The thymus has a cortex on the outside. That's where we're housing the lymphocytes, and it has a medulla internally, which is composed of many, many blood vessels. Many organs have an outside part and an inside part. The outside is always the cortex, and the inside is always the medulla, if those words are used. This thymus is a gland, and it is indispensable for the T cells to become immunocompetent during the embryonic development. In this process, they learn to distinguish self, which is autologous, from foreign structures. They also differentiate into the different kinds of T cells there before they migrate to the secondary lymphoid organs. So you can really see how, in the bottom right picture, it is really the thymus is the T cell school. Lymph nodes are secondary lymphoid organs that have the same basic framework, all of them. They're a meshwork of reticular fibers, so the kind of, it's a meshwork. Reticular fibers creates a sieve kind of sort of structure that can hold lymphocytes. And so these cell collections of them create functional units called lymphatic follicles. So this is aggregate together. Lymph nodes are biological filters inserted into the lymph vessels. They strategically monitor and filter the lymph coming from the periphery. So the blood vessel squeezes all the blood out of the capillaries, or most of it. A lot of it comes back into the veins, and some of it will be picked up. A lot of also will be picked up by the lymph capillaries, and they are one-ended, and so the lymph flows inward into those capillaries but can't exit. And then from there it gets moved towards the heart, where it goes back into the blood, into the venous blood. And so as we go through that process, we pass many lymph nodes, and then they can monitor. So they are bean-shaped and enclosed by a solid connective tissue capsule, and then septa, you can see that on the picture, the black things, they run into the capsule, dividing them in the inside, make it a little segregated. We have then several vessels that bring the lymph to the lymph node. So you see that on the lymph node, that bean-shaped structure on the top, these different things coming down, those are afferent vessels. They bring the lymph to the node. And then we have only one or maybe two that leave the lymph node. And what that does, it slows down the flow of that lymph, and it gives the macrophages time to ingest invaders and present their antigen to lymphocytes. And then from that process on, we can have that specific immunity. Inflamed lymph nodes swell up, they're tender, and they're easy to palpate. When we feel tender in the neck, very often that's because we are fighting an infection, and at that point the lymph node numbers goes way up in those lymph nodes, and so therefore they become crowded, and that hurts a little bit. So if you have those things happening, you just thank your body and be grateful that it works properly, and take action, maybe listen to it and slow down a little bit that day to have the immune system get as much help as possible. The spleen monitors and filters blood. It extracts aging blood cells, red blood cells, and provides also immunological protection. It's a coffee bean shaped organ at the size of a fist, and it lies in the upper left abdomen underneath the diaphragm. It's filled with a red and a white pulp. The red pulp is a complex system of blood vessels. The white pulp is mostly composed of lymphocytes. The smallest arteries coming into the spleen run through the white pulp first, and then they filter the blood in that white pulp. And so that's where we have a lot of lymphocytes, and the system is very similar to the lymph node system. It gives the fluids time to be filtered and understood of where's what's the bad stuff in it, and macrophages can eat the bad stuff, and then the immune system can attack it again. But this way we have a means to filter the blood. We also have a means to filter the lymph. So the lymph nodes for the lymph, the spleen for the blood. Then we have other places where stuff just has entry points, like tonsils or reticular tissue containing lymphoid follicles in the oral cavity. And so when we come in contact with invaders entering through the oral cavity, through the mouth and the nose, bingo, we can try to attack them right there. Perfect. Since those are places that things come in easier, it's not like the skin, there's just a solid boundary. And then we also have gut-associated lymphatic tissue. It's said that 80% of the immune system is in your gut. So being healthy in your gut is absolutely instrumental to being healthy. Because the gut carries all that immune system. The gut also carries a brain, so to speak, a lot of nerve fibers that connect greatly to our own brain. So the gut is a big connection there too. So again, having a healthy gut will help having a healthy brain. So the gut also has a lot of stuff going on because we eat junk, we eat things, and they're coming from the outside world, so we expect there to be antigens on them with some invaders that are not wanted, that just want to come in and do us harm. Maybe not even consciously, maybe they just need to survive themselves, right? So pH patches, what the pH patches do, they harbor clusters of lymphatic follicles, and they are located in the submucosa, which is right underneath the first layer of the internal part of the gut tissue. And there they monitor foreign invaders. And we will see how they function and how they deal with that when we get to the digestive system. It's kind of cool what they do. All right, well, that is the end of this chapter. I hope you learned something.